Poe's The Telltale Heart. The Telltale Heart is a story of conflict, internal and external. There is a mental conflict within himself or herself if the narrator is female. Through clues and statements, Poe signals the reader the mental state of the narrator, which is insanity. The insanity is an obsession which turns to loss of control and violence. In the end, the narrator tells the audience about killing his roommate. Though the narrator seems insane, he realizes that he needs freedom from his guilt. The guilt he has is too overwhelming to handle. The narrator then no longer can bear and confesses his crime. Though this short story does not just aim for murderers, it aims to anyone. The theme of guilt is easy to relate to even today. Edgar Allan Poe, The Telltale Heart, is a timeless short story with a theme that can be learned from today. Any guilt can be felt no matter what one does, and the heart cannot handle that burden. Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston on January 19, 1809, to David Poe Jr. and Elizabeth Arnold Hopkins, who both died before Edgar was 3. Edgar was separated from his siblings and was adopted by Mr. and Mrs. John Allan. Edgar grew up in a good environment and went to good schools. When Poe was 6, he went to school in England for 5 years and later returned to America to continue his studies. In 1826, Edgar went to the University of Virginia at age 17. Even though his adopted father had money, he did not give Edgar a lot of money he needed, and Edgar began to drink heavily and became in a heavy debt. Edgar had to quit school a year later. When Edgar Allan had no money, job skills, and been shunned by his adopted father, he went to Boston and joined the army in 1827 at age 18. When Edgar did well in the army and attained the rank of sergeant major. When Mrs. Allan died in 1829, John Allan attempted to be friendly and coach Edgar and signed his application to West Point. Edgar was in West Point for not very long due to John Allan refusing to send him money. In 1831, Edgar visited New York City and had some of his poetry published, and when John Allan died in 1934, he left no money for Edgar. In 1825, Edgar got a job as editor for a newspaper because of his contest with his story, The Manuscript Found in a Bottle. Edgar would later marry his cousin Virginia while living in Richmond. From there, Edgar successfully managed the paper and quit the job in 1837 when he went to New York. From there, Poe would live somewhere for a while, write, and then move somewhere else, and repeat. With Poe constantly moving around, one could wonder if he ever felt guilt for not holding one steady job and moving around all the time. This continued, and then in 1849, Poe left Richmond for New York and took a stop in Philadelphia. On September 30th, he meant to go to New York, but supposedly took the wrong train to Baltimore. On October 3rd, Poe was found in Gunners Hall, a public house at 44 East Lombard Street, and was taken to the hospital. He lapsed in and out of consciousness, but was never able to explain exactly what happened to him. Edgar Allan Poe died in the hospital on Sunday, October 7, 1849. This started the rumors and mysteries how Poe died and why, but still haven't been discovered the truth. The story, The Telltale Heart, portrays the rapid development of the narrator's being. At first, the narrator is proud of himself for getting away with murder. When the police arrive, he coolly tells them there's nothing wrong, then leads them into the old man's room. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I, myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. In the meanwhile, his conscience gets the better of him. While he was in that room, his guilty conscience bothers him. He starts to hear the old man's heart beating. The ringing in his ears represents his guilt. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. As people experience guilt, it becomes overwhelming, even if you try to ignore it. It is still in the back of your mind, just like the ringing in one's ears after someone would hear a loud noise. By using this description, Poe uses a biological phenomenon that will likely always be familiar to the reader to describe a state of being that will always be familiar to the reader. In this process, the narrator begins to act more unpredictably and starts arguing with the police. Ultimately, it becomes clear that the narrator is losing his mind, and probably obvious to the policeman. "Villains!" I shrieked. "Dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the planks! Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!" This shows the theme that the heart cannot endure the burden of guilt, and in this case it drove the narrator insane. With this theme, this gives the story a relevance, because the theme can still be applied today. People always deal with guilt in different forms, and in the end, we confess our guilt to others because our heart cannot take it. Edgar Allan Poe created a timeless classic that is relatable even still today. Poe's The Telltale Heart is a timeless story with a theme that can be learned from today. With a theme of guilt, anyone can feel guilt for something as doing something that after being told no as a child or murdering someone. After a while, whether 5 minutes or 5 years, the heart will no longer carry the burden of guilt. Guilt is a human's natural response to doing something wrong and admitting what was done in the best way to relieve themselves the burden of what someone did wrong.